Raise your standards and your entire life will rise with them. Most people never understand the true weight of that idea. They think standards are preferences, wishes, goals, or ideals. They're not. Standards are the invisible rules you live by, the expectations you hold for yourself even when no one is watching, the baseline of what you accept and what you refuse to tolerate. Your standards are shaping your decisions, and your decisions are shaping your destiny. The moment you lift those standards, life responds. It has to. Because your standards define the level at which you operate, the quality of what you pursue, and the type of energy you bring into every day of your life. When you raise your standards, you begin to shift internally before anything shifts externally. You begin to speak differently, think differently, and make choices you previously avoided or postponed. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about unlocking the version of yourself that has always existed beneath fear, beneath doubt, beneath the beliefs that kept you safe but never fulfilled. Every transformation begins with a decision. And the most powerful decision you can make is to upgrade what you demand from yourself. Not what you hope for, not what you wish for, but what you absolutely must experience, achieve, and embody. Look at every breakthrough moment in your life. You didn't grow because things were easy. You grew because something inside you said, this can't continue. Maybe you were tired of the excuses, tired of the procrastination, tired of feeling stuck. Maybe you were tired of giving the world a fraction of your ability, tired of settling for relationships, work, habits, or environments that drained your potential. You reached a point where the pain of staying the same was greater than the fear of changing. And in that moment, your standards shifted. That's when doors began to open. That's when new energy showed up in your life. That's when you realized you could stretch farther than you ever believed. The truth is, your standards are either lifting you or limiting you. They are either pulling you forward or anchoring you in the same cycles year after year. And the most dangerous standards are the ones you don't even realize you're living by. Standards like it's okay if I don't finish, or I'll start when I feel motivated, or this is just who I am. We rarely say these things out loud, but we act on them every day. Low standards show up silently. They show up in the morning. You hit snooze, in the task you delay, in the conversation you avoid, in the promises you break to yourself. Every time you accept less than you're capable of, you reinforce the identity of someone who settles. But the moment you raise your standards, you redefine what is acceptable. You no longer allow yourself to operate at half power. You no longer tolerate habits that dilute your energy. You no longer compromise your potential to remain comfortable. Instead, you build an internal contract with yourself. This is who I am now. This is what I do. This is the level I perform at every day. That internal contract becomes the foundation of everything else. It influences how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you meet challenges, how you show up in relationships, how you treat your goals, and how you respond to setbacks. Raising your standards is not about perfection, it's about alignment. When your expectations for yourself rise, you naturally make decisions that honor that new level. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose discipline over distraction. You choose responsibility over excuses. You choose long-term fulfillment over short-term relief. You choose growth over comfort. You choose to chase the bigger version of yourself rather than the easier version. And the more you choose those things, the more momentum you build. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to rely on your own consistency. You begin to feel pride instead of regret. And here's what's powerful. The world responds to the energy you bring. When your standards rise, the people around you begin to shift. Some rise with you. Some fall away. Life organizes itself around your level of expectation. Opportunities come to those who operate with conviction. Resources flow to those who show commitment. People support those who radiate purpose. But none of that happens until you elevate your inner baseline. Until you say, I'm done with half effort. I'm done with excuses. I'm done with the version of me that stayed small. Raising your standards is the ultimate form of self-respect. It's the moment you stop negotiating with the habits that kept you limited. It's when you stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. It's when you stop asking life to give you easier conditions and start asking yourself to become a stronger person. And the moment you do that, you step into a different emotional, mental, and spiritual frequency. You shift from hoping to creating, from reacting to directing, from surviving to building. There is a higher level inside you waiting to be lived. A stronger standard waiting to be set. You don't need permission to raise it. You don't need confidence to raise it. You don't need the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or the perfect mindset. You need a decision, a declaration, a line drawn in the sand that says the life you're stepping into will not be built on the standards you lived by yesterday. Rewrite the limiting stories you've been telling yourself. Every person carries a set of internal narratives that shape how they see themselves, what they believe is possible, and how they behave in the world. These stories don't just sit in your mind. They become the lens through which you interpret every experience. They influence how you respond to challenges, how you view opportunities, and how much of your potential you allow yourself to access. Most people don't even realize they're living inside a story they never consciously created. A story formed from old moments of pain, humiliation, rejection, or fear. A story built from someone's opinion, a past failure, or a belief inherited from a family or environment that never saw the bigger version of them. But a story is not destiny. A story is not truth. A story is simply a pattern of meaning you attached to an experience long ago, and you've carried it forward as if it were fact. The problem is that limiting stories become so familiar, so practiced, that they begin to feel like identity. You repeat them until they become your emotional default. You begin to say things like, I'm not that type of person, or I've never been good at this, or people like me don't succeed in that area, or I always mess up at the last moment. These aren't facts. They're memories. They're interpretations. They're echoes of old fear, and yet they hold the power to control your decisions today. When you believe a limiting story, you unconsciously sabotage your own progress. You hesitate when you should move. You shrink when you should expand. You avoid opportunities that could change your life because your story tells you you're not ready, not enough, not capable. You have to recognize that every story you repeat becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you're bad at relationships, you'll unconsciously behave in ways that sabotage connection. If you tell yourself you're unworthy of success, you'll find excuses to avoid the very habits that create success. If you tell yourself you're stuck, you won't notice the doors that are already open. The story controls your behavior long before you consciously choose anything. That's why rewriting your story isn't optional. It's essential. It's the foundation of lasting change. To rewrite your story, you must first become aware of it. Observe the thoughts you repeat to yourself when no one is listening. Listen to the internal dialogue that shows up when you face a challenge or step outside your comfort zone. Notice the moments you pull back, the excuses you reach for, the emotional reactions that seem automatic. Behind each of those moments is a story about who you think you are and who you think you're not. And once you see the story, you can question it. You can challenge it. You can ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Whose voice am I still carrying? What event am I still letting define me? Is this story helping me grow, or is it keeping me small? Most of the time, you'll discover that the story was never yours to begin with. Rewriting your story begins with choosing new meaning. Maybe the failure from your past wasn't proof of inadequacy, but a moment where you were learning, adapting, growing. Maybe the rejection you experienced wasn't a statement of your worth, but a redirection towards something better. Maybe the struggle you endured wasn't a sign that you're weak, but a sign that you're resilient. You get to decide the meaning. Meaning is power. Meaning determines the emotional weight you carry. And once you shift the meaning, the story begins to dissolve. But rewriting your story is not just about creating positive thoughts. It's about building a new identity through action. The moment you act in alignment with a new story, even in the smallest way, you begin to reshape your internal blueprint. If your old story said you lack discipline, every time you follow through on a small habit, you weaken that narrative. If your old story said you're not confident, every time you speak up, take initiative, or express yourself, you rewrite what is possible for you. If your old story said you don't deserve more, every time you make a bold decision, set a boundary, or choose growth over fear, you reclaim your power. Change happens in the moment you behave differently than your story expects. And understand this, your story is not rewritten once. It's rewritten every day. Every choice, every thought, every action is either reinforcing the old narrative or building the new one. You don't need the perfect mindset to begin. You need willingness. You need honesty. You need the courage to let go of the version of yourself that was built from pain and step into the version built from possibility. You need to recognize that the past is not a prophecy, it's a memory. And memories can be reframed. When you rewrite your story, your energy changes. Your decisions change. Your relationships change. Your confidence changes. You begin to see potential where you once saw limits. You begin to trust yourself in moments where you once panicked. You begin to show up as the person you were always capable of being. A new story creates a new identity, and a new identity creates a new life.